So, the year's 2026. We live in an information overload, don't we? Right? We have got the fastest paced, digitally integrated society ever to grace this planet, right? We've got constant bombardment from computer screens, trying to figure out how to even make them work. And of course, we've got laptops, iPhones, we've got watches. We even have nowadays glasses with cameras in them. Have you guys seen the Meta glasses, right? Those are something else. I've always thought that would be so interesting. Could I put my score in my glasses and then no one would know? That would be so great. Imagine if you had no time to prepare. That would be amazing. Right? Exactly. Well, you could do that with Foursquare. You can just move your eyes and it'll turn, right? Except I have way too shifty eyes, so it'd be going all over the place. Now, here's a question for you. How is the attention span of your students today versus, say, 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I can see a lot of students going, it's different. It's getting a little shorter. Let's take a look at some interesting research. Gloria Mark is a researcher and professor at the University of California, Irvine. And she conducted a study which found that people's attention spans are growing shorter and shorter the more we move into a digital world. Her first study was conducted in 2004, and it found that participants would flit between different screens and tasks fairly often, very fast. So let's take a look at these. 2004, the average attention span while looking at a computer screen was around 2.5 minutes. About 8 years later, 75 seconds. As of just a few years ago, 47 seconds. Now this is while working on digital devices, right? While working with the phone, working computer, doing different things, right? But imagine you were growing up within the last 10, 12 years. This is the only world you've ever known, right? For those of us who are a little bit older, who remember dial-up, who remember no internet, who remember not even having a smart device of any kind, right? Wow, what a different experience it was going through life versus now. And the attention span that our young students have, it needs a little bit of help when we're working on an instrument that was developed nearly 300 years ago or so. And of course, sheet music, that is stationary, it's stagnant, it is not moving. It's not like, I remember when Harry Potter seemed like the pictures are moving on the walls, wow, it's magical. Well, now it's so normal. But how much things have changed. Now, when Mark and her team switched to clustering observations into projects, they found that people spend about 10.5 minutes or so on a project before an interruption caused them to change course. On average, it took about 25 minutes to return to the original task they were on. Okay? Just because of a simple interruption, about 25 minutes before getting back to a full state of focus, right? And so I put together a fun little meme. It's just sort of this idea of a student going, what was I doing? I don't remember. Oh yeah, I was practicing Mozart, right? It totally gets out of their head, if they ever come back at all. Right? So, that's a picture of my office as of yesterday. Okay, so, the distraction age. Let's just ask ourselves, what kind of things distract our students or us or anybody during the practice sessions? Just name a few.
Hunger.
Phones. Hunger. What's that?
Phones.
Phones, yes. Yeah. What else?
Siblings.
Siblings, for sure. Yeah. Say again?
Bathroom.
Need to go to the bathroom? Yep. Good. Nowadays, when we just think about what the devices give us, they come in the form of emails, right? Bling, you hear that come up. You get a text message, right? Imagine you're alone and you're practicing all by yourself, and a text goes, you either feel in your pocket or you get a bling, right? And maybe you look at that. Whew, tension's gone, right? Social media. The pull of social media, especially for the younger generation, is so strong that it is hard not to keep coming back to it 10, 15 times, sometimes within an hour. And I'm not the same way, If something's happening in the world, if I feel very drawn to a particular story and idea, I find myself coming right back to it. And it's a struggle. Okay? Entertainment. Be honest, how many of you have found yourself in a Netflix binging session instead of practicing, right? Plenty of people have done that, right? I gotta see what's happening in the next season or in the next episode, right? Things are disappearing, and they shouldn't be. Somehow I made it go backwards, I gotta figure out how I did that. Just an app notification even, right? You might even just get a bling that you got an email, or that there's a news story, or that your phone is at low battery. Something can distract you. And remember that research, even the simplest of interruptions can cause a huge focus disruption that can last not only for seconds, but for minutes. Okay? And of course, this happens on repeat. And on repeat, and on repeat, and it goes on and on and on. Okay? Now, here's the question I have for you today. How can we tune out the distractions and choose to tune in with clear intent and purpose? Now, this is a real question. I really want to know. What do you guys think? How can we do that?
Turn off your computer, turn off your cell phone.
Mm-hmm. So just
Have a
unplug.
set time.
Okay, very good. Yes?
My son, who finished law school a few years ago, told me he literally had to keep his phone in a different room.
Mhm.
That's how he got all his study done.
Yeah.
Literally, and I thought, wow, good for him.
Yeah.
He didn't answer messages very.
Sure. Right? You know, I remember when that was just the norm. I would check my emails once a day, usually at the end of the day. And now, if I don't answer an email within an hour, people are like, "Are you okay? What are you doing? This needs to be due by 2." And I'm like, I'm trying to take care of my lessons, right? But it's such a fast-paced world. It is hard sometimes to unplug, but it is, I think, incredibly important. What else? What other things can we do? Yeah.
I think keeping a practice log, a lot of students know they need to practice, but they don't know where they want to start.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily come in with a plan, but once I start working on something, I write it down.
Good.
So I can reference it later.
You are on the right track for today's lesson. I should say. This is fantastic. Having a plan. Now, I had a practice log when I was in school. I'm going to get to this in just a moment. This was it. This was my trusty practice log. And before you get excited about all those days of practice, I probably only filled about the first half, maybe the first quarter. But still, I got through quite a bit of that in my undergrad. But the process that I did ultimately failed until I grew and changed what I was doing, because there was a fundamental flaw in the way I viewed what a practice log was or should be. And that's what today's lesson is going to revolve around quite a bit. Now, I have a simple suggestion as to how we can change the way that we approach practicing in a way that will help us tune in with great clarity and focus, and it might even just be a game changer for you and your students. If greater focus and direction is what you need to be successful, try this process called minute measures. Okay? It's a simple timer-based practice method that can help you really supercharge, I think, your practicing and eliminate focus problems once and for all. And the fun was, like, I just put that into like a AI thing. I said, create a piano that says minute measures and have a timer. And it's like, perfect, it's great. It's amazing. I could have paid someone hundreds of dollars to do that, but I didn't. Okay, so.
So how much time do you spend on AI?
Very little, but I find that more often my students are using it, and if I don't understand it, I never use it. I don't understand what it is they're doing or how they might be generating a certain voice, because I have, like, at the end of every semester, I have students submit a listening report. I give them some kind of listening assignment, and I say, okay, submit to me a report, about 5-10 pages. Some of them, I mean, you could generate this in about 10 seconds with AI, right? Without them having to do anything. They just type it in, make sure you know all the prompts, generate something that's going to give me, a report, about 5 to 10 pages on Beethoven and his sonatas, maybe focus on second movements or whatever. And then boom, off it goes. Because it can scour the whole internet, right? So yeah, we definitely have a lot more safeguards now concerning this. BYU's application process even says, did you use AI in any part of the creation of your application? Right? Because you have to state that, right? It's crazy. So, all right. This is going to be a simple method about how to utilize a simple tool that likely we all have around the house. But if you don't worry about like 100 timers for this lesson. So I got a ton of timers for you guys, okay? But this is one of the most simple timers that you could find around, okay? And I have got a lot of these. If you don't have one of these are great. And I'll give each of you one of these before the lesson's over. I have a few interesting ones too that are a little bit larger, okay? But this is a method that just uses a timer, okay? Now, what exactly is a minute measure? I want you to take a little journey with me to a small music college in Turlock, California. Get ready to see a young version of Dr. Pierce. Here I am. This is 18-year-old Jared. Okay? This is my very first day of my undergrad studies. I think someone came over and said, quick, what's your name? I didn't know what I was going to say. This is putting things in my locker for the first day. Now, I was very new to the ways of like 4 to 6 hour practice days. Like as a college student, that was like, wow, that's a ton of time. And it was daunting, and it was often ineffective. And this wasn't because I had a smartphone. In fact, there were no smartphones yet. That was my phone. You guys remember those? I could drop that off a second-story building and be fine. Those things were built like a rock. But I could text, but generally, I mean, you had to pay for every text in those days. So it really, like, technology was not geared towards being on it all the time. It was simply a method for communication with others, and that was pretty much it. It was not a source of, well, entertainment or anything else. Now, the struggle to find focus, even in those days, was still pretty real. I didn't know how to find the right mental focus or clarity or purpose in my practice sessions. And I knew what to change. Certainly my teacher's comments told me what I needed to change, but I didn't really know how to do it. And so I found myself in every lesson trying to get more and more and more information out of my teacher so that I really understood what he wanted. And then the implementation of it, I still struggled with, right? So I felt a little bit like I was spinning my wheels. I decided to start keeping a notebook, okay? Here's an entry from that notebook, okay? My handwriting is so much better. It's still horrible, but you know, as soon as I got a doctoral degree, we're not up to, I don't know what it is, like I'm gonna get that doctoral degree and like I can be scrawl now. But you can see a few things. I've got my pieces listed, or at least I got the composers. And you see a time amount. What other things strike you about it?
Metronome.
Metronome markings?
Right hand, left hand.
Okay.
Dynamics.
Good.
And were they totaled? Were those times totaled? So this was a
Yes.
post journal.
You got it, exactly. So the next questions that I have are, what issues do you spot in this record? What things are good, a little bit on the surface, but they also lack clarity. They lack purpose or focus. Yeah.
You just listed the piece and not like what specific measures or what you worked on.
Pretty much, right? Yeah.
You have no evaluative method there.
Aha.
No way to say, this went well, this didn't go well, take this next time.
Got it. Really all it was essentially a record of saying, I did it. This is a way of showing to my teacher, look, I practiced, I promised I did, What was it prioritizing in my practice attempts?
Quantity.
Quantity, right? Definitely not quality, but quantity for sure. Did I succeed in any areas?
It looks like you probably knocked out your 4 hours.
Close. I got close. I think I was closer to about 2.5 to 3.5 most days. In fact, I remember giving a presentation. My teacher might have grabbed was Steve Thomas from BYU, Idaho, if you guys know who that is. This is back when he taught. He pretty much built a whole school of music around himself and kind of revitalized it at Caesar Stanislason. I was prepped to go study with Norman Krieger at USC, and he came. I had a master class with him, and he said, "Come study with me here." And so it was like 10 minutes down the road. I said, "Fine, I'll go there." And it was great. I absolutely loved the experience. But we did a presentation together. I think it was for MTNA National. No. It was a local chapter. And he remembers me coming to a lesson and talking about how much I had practiced that week. And I told him about an hour. He says, "An hour?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, every day? I said, "No, about an hour." Through the whole week. I had a really bad practice week. And yet I still was fairly prepared for my lesson. But I sometimes really struggled to put in the hours. This was a pretty good week. I think I was being nice to myself when I chose this week. But I practiced every single day, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I even worked on Sunday. Okay? Now, here's some of the things that I noticed. There was a lack of tools. I really didn't use anything specific in my practice other than, let's just, put in a certain amount of time. Okay? So, first thing I want to consider is maybe what tools am I using to polish my pieces. I also had a lack of framework. I really didn't have a plan for how to break down my pieces into sections or spot work. I just recorded the amount of time I spent on each piece, and I kind of hoped that would be enough. And then I really didn't use my time well. I recorded it, but I didn't know what I was going to do within the span of that, right? I didn't leverage time in a way that propelled me forward. Okay? What is the most fundamental thing we have for managing time in a normal lesson or practice? Clock? Yeah. What?
Having a plan of what you're going to do,
Yeah.
not sidetracking.
No, definitely. Plan for sure helps. I'm thinking of more of a physical device,
Oh,
though, that everyone has, that we all use. It makes an annoying ticking sound if you forget about it. This little guy, right? And I don't know how many of you still like the old school. Like, I really like those. I've just always liked this old school metronome. I kind of collect them. I have a small little collection at home, different ones, including one I just bought on Temu, which is really funny. It has 0 numbers on it. It's just up and down. So you have to guess. Somewhere around that far. So yeah, time. How do we leverage time? So here's a quote that came across my recollection. Okay, by failing to prepare, you prepare to fail. How many times do you feel like a student has come in, or have you come in as a student, and you told your teacher, look, I practiced every single day, and yet I'm nowhere. I feel like I didn't get anywhere, or I feel like it's not making sense yet. So it wasn't so much the lack of effort, it was the lack of preparation. There's a really important secret when it comes to practicing. It's not just about the amount of energy you put into practice. It's about, is there a focus here? Is there a goal? Is there, shall we say, a framework to help me make sure that I can manage my goals? So, let's get into it. Born from the ashes of this period was essentially my first version of minute measures, where I knew it, I was leveraging time as a tool rather than simply recording what I had done. And over the past 20 or so years, I've made many changes to this method until the process just seemed about right. I'm still making refinements to it. I have students try this all the time. And I will say, this is not my end-all only way to practice. Definitely not. I use this specifically for when students either really struggle to focus or simply when they feel like they're not getting anywhere, right? How many of you use a charting process when you practice? Anybody have a very clear technical chart? I remember that was new to me, and then I went to study with Iron Fox at BYU, and it was like, here's the chart. And it was something both that we would use regularly as well as something that was a bit of a punishment when you did not practice well. It was like, you have to chart. I was like, oh. But it was effective because it gave me structure. And this process is something that is somewhat like a chart, but it is not an actual physical, I'm writing in a chart. It's more of a guideline to follow, okay? So, are you guys ready to learn a little more?
Yeah.
Should we do it?
yeah, let's try.
Let's jump in, okay? All right, we're diving in. So, minute measures is a method in using short interval practice sessions, or SIPs. I find that's helpful to remember. Thank you so much. I love it, thank you. Okay? And I really do recommend this, as was mentioned before. Put the phone away, right? It's so easy to go, my phone can do anything, right? And to just pull that out. But it is such a distraction device. And it is so easy for that distraction device, even when we're using it for something that is meant to be very helpful, for it to weasel its way into our awareness, our consciousness, or something that we want to immediately just grab, okay? I don't know about you, but sometimes I grab my phone and I don't even realize I grabbed it. It's just a habit, right? So, consider putting away your phone and trying an actual physical timer.
Which means you have to tell your students to use an actual physical metronome also, not
Yes.
just a metronome app.
Yes, that's a good point, and I always tell my students this, yes. Please use an actual metronome. Partially because these kinds of metronomes and other click-style ones, they work usually by intervals rather than single numbers. And it's always a problem when students don't have ones that go up by 2s or 4s or 6s, right? They tend to not have the right kind of push or pull in their metronome climbs. Now, here's 4 essential elements to the success of this method, but I also think it's successful in any style of practice. First thing, you gotta choose your sections. And this does not have to take long, guys. This can take like 20, 30 seconds tops, and you're off and you're running, okay? We'll talk about how to do that. You wanna create simple goals. Simple goals. I'm not talking about something that takes you a really, really long time. Just something simple, okay? By the way, do I have until 10 or 9:50?
You can do till 10.
Didn't do till 10? Okay, fantastic. All right. And then we're going to select a time interval. This is where our timer is going to come into hand or into play. And then, of course, don't forget your tools. Now, choose your sections. This is where it's a little different than a lot of methods, but not too different, right? So imagine that you're starting with a very small section. Maybe a measure, 2 measures tops, not too much. It really depends on the difficulty of the piece that you're working on. So let's just say you're working on, I don't know, something quite intermediate, in level. Maybe it's first arabesque. I think that's one that I put in here actually. Versus if you're working on, say, List La Campanella, right? Or maybe Ravel, Gaspard de Louis, right? It's like totally different. Your approach to it is going to be a much different process in much smaller or larger sections. Now, as you get more comfortable, you can move to some medium sections, then you can move to some larger sections. But it's important to remember that this is all going to involve time. It is not just small sections, now large sections. We're working it sequentially using a timer, and our time overall is very focused. Okay, so moving right along, just take a thing, okay? That's the thing I have to remind students. Just this SIPS rule keeps us simple and achievable at all times of a new practice session. The best part, you can take as many sips as you like. You don't have to just take a sip and put it down, right? If you feel like, man, that single minute measure or 2 minute measure didn't work for me, do it again. Try it a few times. Now, here's an example, right? This is that first arabesque. I think it's maybe the second page. You guys all know this piece, right? Such a pretty piece. Oh, it's lovely. Now, if we're going to put it into small sections, I'd probably do about 2 on this one. Not too small, not too large. Something manageable and something I feel like in about a minute I can make some progress on. Okay? Now, beyond that, I might do a medium section. That's probably going to be about 4 measures. Now, before some of you start to think, gosh, that doesn't seem like enough, again, you can take more than 1 sip. Make sure that you're doing more than 1 sip when you do this process. Okay? And then, of course, you have a larger section, which is probably about a page. Okay? How long is this piece? Anybody taught it well enough or enough times to know how long it is? About 5-ish pages, right? So imagine if you went through this process and your student did it every single day. And I said, I want you to do about a page a day. Okay? That's going to be your process. And you follow this and you go strictly through it exactly as it's done. It may take you maybe an hour at most, maybe a little bit less, but you go through this every single day. And you tell your student, how many of you feel comfortable giving this to a student? Say, I want this completely learned next week. Anybody do that? No, right? It's like, that's way too much, right? It's just not going to be there, right? If a student is really well versed in this process and knows how to break it apart and do this, they can learn pretty quickly. And they can usually come back in a pretty fast amount of time. I remember the first piece I ever became really obsessed with. And it was the first piece I ever learned in college. It was the And my teacher told me, how far can you go? And I said, I don't know. I don't usually learn music super duper fast, but he says, just see how far you can go. Maybe learn the whole piece. And that was such a shock to me. But I said, okay, let's try it. And I was so caught up in the work and so interested in each of the sections that I learned it in about a week. It's about 4-ish pages long. And I was kind of shocked and amazed that I did it that quickly. And it opened my mind at that time to the idea that music learning does not have to be as slow as we often force it to be with our students, or as they force it to be with their practice, right? We can get better results, but it requires organization. Now, I want to contrast this with, say, this. Paganini variation, book 2, Brahms, right? A little bit different, a little bit harder, probably above the level of many students, but certainly doable. We're going to have to work on it using a lot of different tools, namely slow to start, right? But how would I break this up? I don't think I had done that. So can I go back? Yes, I can. Okay. So how would you break this up? Probably just that first measure, right? I might even go from beat 4 to beat 3, beat 4 to beat 3, right? In terms of how it's kind of situated on there. But then I move into 2 measure sections after I've kind of gone through them in one at a time. And then I'd probably do all 8, and I'd call that pretty good for a single practice session. I might do several of these sessions, but that might be my main focus with this because it's a lot more dense, a lot more difficult. And I want students using this method to feel very confident about their playing, not simply that they've gotten a quick little brush at it. Okay? All right, so number 2, goal setting. This is super duper 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 important, okay? All practice inevitably involves repetition. I ask practice students, okay, what do you do in your practice? I do repetitions. Okay, great, what else? And then they have no idea, right? Just repeat, right? So, every repetition should have a goal. Every repetition should have a goal. Every single time. If you're going to repeat it again, it has to have a goal. Can it have the same goal as the one you had a moment ago? Sure, but it has to have a goal. You have to be focused on that goal. Now, too often practice consists of mindless repetition. It really lacks growth or understanding. In order to be effective, you have to turn your practice into a focused activity with purpose. This is the most fundamental guiding principle of really any practice method. And if your practice lacks clear, purposeful goals, the minute metric process and all other forms of practice, for that matter, will fail. So time can only be an asset if it's combined with focus. Now, here are some very common goals. Every single repetition can have a goal. Could it be I'm trying to work on my notes, my accuracy. It could be my rhythms. It could be my fingering. It could be my technique. Maybe the gestures that I'm using, the looseness of my body, my arms. It could be the tempo that I'm choosing to do that repetition. Expression, stage presence, memorization. There's lots of things, right? But these are all goals of every repetition that we can put in. Now, I really like this adage of aim small, miss small. Okay? If you're going to practice and you're trying to just take way too much at one time, you're likely going to have trouble. Aim small, miss small is something that comes from essentially a process of those who are working with targets who are trying to work shooting at something either through archery or something else, and they're trying to make sure that their goal is extremely narrow, so that if they miss, they also miss narrow. All right? Now, anybody know who that guy is? Noah Kageyama? I'm sure you guys have used this article. If you haven't, this is a really great one. It's called The 8 Things Top Practicers Do Differently. It's great. It's what, 2014? I remember reading this as a doctoral student and going, that was sublime, it's wonderful, I'm going to take that to the bank. I encourage you to look it up. I don't have time today to go through it, but boy, there's some great nuggets of information, and it often dispels many myths that we ourselves have as teachers as to what constitutes effective practice. Okay? Some of those include, is more time the best thing? Is more repetitions the best thing? And he says no, it's not. Okay? It's really about learning the right way of going through it. Okay? So please look that up. I think it's really, really awesome. It's Bulletproof Musician is a blog, I think, that he posts into. He works at Juilliard. It's one of their performance faculty and a bit of a psychologist as well. Now, here's the third thing in this method. You got to select your time. This is the fun part. This is the part that I actually really enjoy. So, a thought about me. I am someone who, I'm kind of a fast-paced guy. I like to work fast, but I also get distracted easily. My students call me the distracted professor because this is who I am. You come into my office and you can tell I've got like 4 or 5 different projects going on at once. Okay? But I think part of that is a reflection of my own personality and the character traits that make me up, but also it's just a reflection of today's society, of how constantly we're doing a million different things. So I really like having things organized in a very simple way. So 1-minute intervals, that's the ideal. That's what I want you working towards with your students. This sometimes takes a little bit of time to work towards in this method. It feels really fast. And if we have time, I'm going to do a little case study with one of you, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm guessing that the 1-minute interval will feel incredibly quick. If you get comfortable with it, you start to take in more information. I used this method recently, Rock 2, I'm playing that this summer in Vietnam, of all places, interesting performance, and I learned the first 6 pages just using this method, right? Going through it very, very quickly, did that in 1 day. And it worked incredibly well. And I had the first 2 pages memorized by the end of the first day. It worked really, really well. But again, it's focused, it's highly repetitive, and it has a lot of variety. Now, 2 to 3 minute intervals, it's great for beginners. It gives them time to really think it through, try different things, remember what possible tools and so forth you can use. And then 5-minute intervals, never go larger than that, and I would say that's only for about medium sections to large sections. Okay? Now, you might be thinking, hey, these are things that I already do without a timer. Great! Keep doing it. This is not supposed to replace that. This is really a way of helping, I keep wanting to say kids or students, but really all of us. If we feel like we don't organize or practice well, this is a great way of honing that focus and that ability. And then eventually, hopefully, it just becomes a part of the way you think and the way you move, or the way that you practice. And then, boom, off you can go. So think of this as sort of like your training center, okay? Now, those common goals I mentioned. If I was to say, I'm going to do a single minute on every single one of those, right, per measure, well, this could take a long time, right? You could do it that way, but it starts to become a little bit tedious, right? I recommend that, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that you could do some of those things in conjunction with one another? Can you work on both notes and rhythm and tempo? Of course you can, right? It should be done in conjunction. In fact, the best ways of learning are together. So I couldn't figure out how to do this, but I sent you 1 minute for each of those things, like together. So imagine it's 1 minute for notes, rhythm, and tempo. You're trying to work on each of those concepts concurrently. Or maybe you have another repetition, and you're just trying to focus on just the fingering and the technical execution of it, right? 1 single minute can be enough in a small sphere working on those 2 ideas. But again, the whole point of this is that you have a goal for every repetition that you're doing. It's not simply repeat and then see what it was, right? That was my old method. Write it down. What did I do? I did this. I did for that long. No, have a goal. This is really one of the most fundamental things about great practicers. They practice differently. They have goals. Now, what's missing from my fun little list I made? I have my tools, my framework, and my clock. What do I really not have yet?
Evaluation.
Evaluation, yeah, for sure. But of these 3 things specifically, what have I not really used much of yet? I've got a framework. I've got a way of organizing my time. I haven't really talked about the tools. Yeah. What kind of tools do you guys usually use when you practice? And tools, let me explain that word a little bit. I'm specifically thinking of how do I break up practice into different methods and making it simpler for them, right? One of the easiest things that we're always taught in the beginning is hands separately, right? Hold them apart, right? So, sorry, I just couldn't help it. I think I made this late at night. But don't forget your tools. I think it's really helpful, by the way, when you look at this next little sheet, and it's just a simple one I drew up in about 3 minutes or so, but when you have a tool sheet, a toolkit, it helps students know immediately what they can do to start breaking up their practice into different things. A student borrowed it at one point, never gave it back, but there was a great MTNA presentation in which they had turned, I think Hal Leonard had it. It was like a trifold thing that I had on my wall. I said, you know what this is? Yeah?
That's it.
Yeah, who did it?
Nancy O'Gill?
Yes.
Nancy O'Neill?
Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the one, yes, correct.
One
It was
for
great.
students and one for parents.
Yeah, and I had this on my wall, and a student borrowed it, never gave it back. I was like, but I really want it back. But these are essentially some ideas that I've come up with. She had a bunch, I think she had like 50 on her chart. But you want to have ways in which to make every repetition have a method for getting that process, that goal, a little bit easier. So for example, if I'm working on my tempos, I might try some metronome climbs. Simple thing. I grab my metronome, start slow, then I go a little faster, then I go a little faster. And you don't have to use a metronome. You can simply do this by feel, but that's an idea. You could say, hey, I'm working on my ability to develop tone. I really want to know how to develop this. I usually use something like a prima donna, where I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to play that right hand really loud. It's just, whoa, huge sound, right? And I want that to come way, way out. And it's helping students develop that sense of balance and voicing, right? What if I want to essentially help them develop really strong fingers? I might use that high, loud fingers approach. Although I usually tell students do that sparingly. Don't overdo that. Don't hurt yourself. Okay? But there's lots of fun little things. You can do rhythmic variations. Rhythms is one of the biggest things, right? You can do them in groupings. You can do accent patterns. You can do additive practice. Additive practice is really helpful if you just need a teeny tiny bit. You add a little bit more, add a little bit more, add a little bit more. And what goal could that be serving? I'm just maybe learning notes at that point, right? Or maybe I'm focusing on the gesture, but I'm going a little bit at a time, and I'm growing that gesture to where it becomes more comfortable and understood, right? Maybe it's even just learning how to play an arpeggio, right? What about just maybe isolating voices? How many of you have taught a fugue and you said, okay, I just want you to learn how to play the soprano line or the bass line, or just take those 2 things out, right? Take your top voice and your bottom voice. Take out the middle stuff, or hymn work, right? So many different things that we can do. And this is just a small list, right? But having a toolbox is really, really helpful. And I would practice these with your students. Have them figure out how to just apply different ways of breaking up the piece into different manageable ideas or chunks or tools. Does it make sense? All right. So, the most important, of course, thing that we need for a minute measure is this. It's a timer. Now, I couldn't help myself. I applied for a little grant for this because BYU sometimes like, hey, you're giving me a presentation, do you want some money? I said, sure. So I got like $200 worth of timers. So, just because it's fun. So I've got a bunch of these, and I forgot to get batteries. I'm so sorry. But these, I think this is probably enough for what we got here. These are those very simple kitchen timers, right? Just go ahead and take the box and take one and pass it down. There are a few different colors. Grab one of those. okay? But these are such a simple little timer to use. The way that they work is you've got essentially a minute, second, and start and stop. You can do this essentially as just a count-up timer or a countdown timer. What I love about these, okay, first of all, they have a little stand, which is handy. So you can just put it right there on the piano, which is nice. All the ones with magnets are great, but there's no magnets on this thing, okay? There's nothing to magnetize it. But when you start it, when you pick a section, let's just say you set it for a minute. What happens when it finally gets down? It'll start beeping. You have to physically stop it, and I think that's important. You don't want it to just beep and then be done. You want something to break you out of the cycle and start again. So it's an individualized sort of reset the line, okay? And it can be fast. So you would just push this button on the side. I'm so sorry that they're not battery. I wish you could try them out right now, okay? But you stop it. Now here's the thing I like about it. When you stop it, it goes right back to the time that you had originally set. And I love that. It's so quick. So let's just say I'm just doing 1 minute intervals. It'll go right back to a minute. Let's say you had a minute and 5 seconds. It'll go right back to a minute and 5 seconds. And so you just push start again and off it goes. So it's a very easy process to on and off. And this, I got a pack of 16 for 20 bucks. These are like $1.50, maybe $2 or so. They're cheap. They're not expensive. So I encourage you to use them for your students. I've still got another box. So if you guys need, well, if you want to take a few more, that's fine. Now, I recently read a book that I thought was very interesting, and I thought, gosh, this guy was thinking along the same lines I was. It's called the Pomodoro Technique. Anybody read this? A few people, yeah? So this was essentially a guy who was in school and college, and like me, feeling a little bit of the pressure of schedules and so many things weighing down on him. And so he developed a little method using a timer. And his method revolves around essentially these 25-minute focus sessions. And it's the idea that you would put on a timer for 25 minutes, and in that course, you were working through something, and you're trying to keep your focus, you're trying to keep yourself devoted to what you're doing, and that timer goes off, and you immediately get 5 minutes of rest. For all of a sudden, and then boom, another 25 minutes. And generally, you do these in about a sequence of 4. Now, I tried that with practicing, and it's helpful, but maybe not as focused. And I found that that really helped me to kind of break out of the cycle of just playing until the timer was done, and I was done, right? So thank goodness it's over. I wanted something that was a little bit more finely tuned. But a lot of timers now exist, and you can find pretty much every variety you can imagine, from dice to things like this, that are Pomodoro based, meaning that they all have that 25-minute interval. Now, to contrast, those are $1.50 or $2. This was $30. And I got 3 of them, so if you want one, you can have one. But here's what's really cool about this, okay? Depending on which way you turn it, it'll reset to that time. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 60, 30, right? Which is really cool. I can also turn it like this. It'll pause. I can put it flat, and it's hard to see, but it actually turns into an actual count-up timer. And it is magnetic, which, like I said, for us, see, it's not cool. But a lot of people like these to put them in their kitchen, right, when they're cooking or something. But this is handy, and it's about 40 hours worth of battery, okay? And it's rechargeable. You just plug it in. So these are handy, and if you want something that's a little bit more like this, you can do that. It has a few other programmable functions that you can put into it. So that one's pretty nice. I have a few of those here. Maybe we'll have a little game to figure out who gets that. But how many of you used or had a timer, where did it go? Like this. You guys remember this old school timer, the wind up one, right? Yeah.
Oh, they tick.
Developing. Say again?
They tick.
Yeah, they tick. Yes, yeah, I can tell. Some people have the same feelings that I do. It's just sort of like you hear that tick and you're sort of like,
That's your
I'm getting a little bit more and more and more, just stressed out. I kind of like that these are silent. Sometimes people really like the ticking because it provides an external sense of like, oh, I'm working on something. But these timers can still be effective. If nothing else, feel free to use something like this, okay? Now, I find these ones are nice because it's a large digital face. You literally just turn it to what you want and off it goes, okay? So this is a nice little, this one's about $8, $9. And then there's this one, which I thought was interesting. Oh, yeah. This one is essentially you tap it, much like an alarm clock. So let's just say you're practicing and you do that. You can actually keep track of laps of how long something took. So let's just say you practice, you want to actually decide how long is it going to take when you get to a place of comfort. Boom, tap, okay, that's about 3 minutes, 25 seconds, right? Keeps going and immediately starts the next section, right? And so you can program about 4 different laps or so with this. So again, another way of looking at it. The thing I don't like about this, there's no way to turn it off. You have to take the battery out. Really don't like that. And then, this is what my students think is the funniest. This one is ginormous, okay? But, and obviously you wouldn't carry around this with you, but if you had it at home, this has individual tasks that you can write in with a marker, and it has sliders with a check and an X. So let's just say you said to your student, okay, today we're going to work on these 4 things. And you can use this in a lesson. So let's just say you're working with a student and you're just holding this and you're saying, okay, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to work on this. And then you're going to say to yourself, okay, those are the things I want to try to get through by the end of the lesson. Like, okay, we got that done, we got that done, we got that done. How many of you feel like I had all these ideas of what I wanted to get done with the student and then the time was done all of a sudden, right? This can be really helpful, and that timer's going, right? So maybe you just have to write the amount of time that you want for each listening. So this is pretty cool. As an educator, I find this great.
What's that called?
This one is called a task timer, which has a planning board with visual timer. Okay? Who asked that question? I missed it. This is right here.
Oh,
Would you like it?
well, thank you, but I didn't ask that.
Oh, you didn't ask me who was it? Who asked that?
Behind me.
Oh, Nancy. You
Oh,
want
I
to
just
answer?
asked. No, give it to somebody.
Okay, would you like it?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so these are a few different timers. I will say, after trying all of these, I still think the best thing is this. It's the most convenient, it's the easiest, and it resets so fast. So I find this, just for the method, the easiest thing. And of course, it's so cheap. And I don't want there to be any reason why a student would go, I don't want to spend $20 on a timer. So, yeah, and I kind of agree. So, when BYU was paying for it, I was happy to buy a few. But I don't know if I'd buy $30 timers all the time. These are a little expensive. So, okay. Oh, that's right, I'm working on a different thing. So, let's do this. I want to try this out with somebody. Anybody willing to give this a go? Yes? Fantastic. Okay, so I've got a few different options. We could try, I'll show petting twos. We could try a Scarlatti Sonata. That's a little better? Yes? Okay, maybe we'll try that one. The last one I've got is Bach, Allemande. Okay? No, go backwards. No, it's going forward. No, I don't know how to make it go back. Hold on, come over here. Which one would you like to try?
Let's try this one.
The Scarlatti. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for being brave. Let's all give her a big round of applause. Let me go move some of my things here. Now, I'm just going to use this simple timer that I've got right up here that I showed you a moment ago. I'm going to set it for a minute. Now, have you played this piece before?
No.
No, it's brand new for you? I'm going to go ahead and put it on my iPad so that you don't have to look up. You can just read it from here. Oh gosh. Actually, I wonder if I actually put this one in here. And let me ask you something. When you normally learn music, how fast do you learn?
Well,
Is it ever something you tracked or thought about? Like,
no, I start and I'm like, okay, what's here?
Mhm.
Usually just do an overview, but then I go section by section and
Kind of just see what happens. You see where the results lie.
then pretty quickly you know which parts your fingers are not, you gotta build the mile and sheet
Yeah.
business. So.
Yeah, of course. Okay. I've got some Scarlatti Sonatas. None of them are that one. Okay, we're going to do this very simple method. I'm just going to take a picture and you're going to look at that. Oh, technology's fun. Okay, we'll do it this way. Oh, you don't have to look up. Actually, this way probably easier. A little bit larger. Fantastic. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to pick your small section. Pick your sip. Just a teeny tiny amount to start. How much do you feel comfortable doing in that small amount, that little sip? And this is a personal process. You kind of have to figure out what works for you.
I usually say like the first theme, like
Yes.
basic.
So sometimes it's, and I often tell students, if you work better in phrases, or if you think better in phrases, or if you think it's going to create the best result, do that. Some people like to truncate things much smaller, or even outside of phrases, because it helps them to learn things a little bit better, and that's fine. But let's just start by maybe learning the first measure. Okay?
Oh,
Well, let's see. Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum. How about just to there?
Okay.
All the way to that next day. Okay? Now, for this first time, I want you to start practicing, and I don't want you to pick a goal.
okay.
I literally just want you to play, and I want to see what results happen. Okay?
Okay.
All right, ready? I'm going to start this, and go. That's it. Now we've got to be disciplined, not to move on. This is the hardest part. All right? Okay? Stay with. You've got 49 seconds. Our job as instructors, or as students working on this method, is we have to really remain focused on the idea. I'm staying where I'm at, and I'm getting every last drop of influence and understanding that I can out of it. There's so much we can get out of repetition. Remember that the We just pipe. And we find ourselves, what's that phrase? You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, right? Expecting a different result. No, right? We have to change. You got 9 seconds. You got 9 seconds. Okay, good. And then our timer goes off. Okay, now let me ask you, did you approach this with any particular tools in mind?
I wanted to get the right fingering.
Okay,
I
those are
didn't
goals.
look at the
right?
signature.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get the right fingering and the right notes and the right rhythm.
Okay, fantastic. So those are 3 very central goals, and I love it. That's great. We instinctually will do this because we want to have goals. We want to know what we're aiming for, right? Now let me ask you, did you apply any particular tools other than repetition? Did you try it loud? Did you try it softer? Did you change the rhythm?
No, I didn't change.
And
no.
separate?
You did it slower.
Oh, we tried
I
it
went
slower.
slower.
Good. And that is the most fundamental thing of any practice session. You have to involve slow practice. If we don't, our brain simply does not pick up all the things that we should be picking up. So slow is good. We got 1. Let's see if we can add a few more. I'm going to give you another practice session. And I want you to think about what other things can I apply. Let's try this. I want you to do a little bit of right hand alone. I want you to do a little bit of left hand alone. I want you to maybe try putting everything in staccato or everything in legato, right? Regardless of what rhythms are on there. And we're going to see what that gives us.
Left hand alone, right hand alone, staccato alone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Let's try it. Just very simple, manageable goals. Ready? Let's try it again. Another minute. Go. Try no staccato. Take it. Good. But just those first 2 parts. Just those first 2 parts. Just
Well, I have to read it.
I understand. Okay. Good. Make it all legato. No space after the first note. We're changing rhythms too. How about this? Ba-dum, ba-ga-dum, ba-bum. How about that? Nice, good. How about this? I want you to play it to where you're playing it with both hands, but you're going to hold your upper melody. So like this. Good. Now you notice as she goes through this process, and she tries lots of different methods and ways within this short amount of time, we're focusing on lots of different principles. It could be that we're looking at musical details. Okay. That timer goes off, and it's sort of a shock because you're so focused at what you're looking at, right? Now, this process is tricky at first because you're not always sure which way to go. And you find, actually, this is a really great illuminator at how scattered we can sometimes be when we practice because we're not always sure what we're looking to do. Now, I will say, the best way to learn and to practice is to get more of a holistic and Gestalt kind of way of thinking. So we want to do a lot of things at once. But I would say that a lot of times when we're trying to approach a lot of different things, we do so without a whole lot of repetition and fixing of that particular idea. I think I need to stop. We're probably already at 10 o'clock. We could spend so much time doing this. Let's see. Yeah, it's about 9:59. But, yeah, oh yeah, thank you. Now, if I was going through this process, just really quick, let's just say I was working, maybe I would work on what fingering am I using here, and I would really take the time just to figure that out. The accent, taking every detail. Maybe I start working away from the score. I start doing it more by memory. I do a little bit more feel. I think about the gestures in my body. I start going through a lot of things quickly. But I'm trying to organize my information into a much tighter sphere so that I'm more efficient in my time. Okay? So this is a process that if you use it, if you work at it, it can become a really great way to learn quickly, to make sure that you're thinking of lots of different tools, and of course, focused goals. Okay? So give it a try. I'm sorry you'll all need a AAA battery to get this done, but I'm sure you can find it. But thank you so much. I appreciate it.